All right. So we're going to start with an invisible guest because that will be useful. So this show was actually Max's idea. Max is a coworker of mine at Amazon who approached me and said, well, why don't you tell your story, who you are, Max, and tell your story, and that will give me a chance to look at fixing the big white picture.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a giant white square. I work at Amazon, and
And have a good sense of humor.
well, thank you, Ethan, for having me on, and welcome everybody who's watching / listening. Yes, I've been at Amazon for about the past 6 years, but as you mentioned, I sort of remember this time or time like this, what we're sort of going through now, or what recent college grads are going through now, because I went through something sort of similar in March of 2009 during what was then called the sort of Great Recession. And so, to your point about this sort of being my idea, as I was sort of seeing these just unbelievable unemployment numbers come out and sort of recognizing a lot of the same things, and trying to sort of be empathetic to people that were graduating in this time, I sort of drafted up a small LinkedIn post to offer some help. And I sort of made it pretty general. It was, I think, something to the effect of, count me in for resume edits, interview coaching, thoughts on where to look for a job, or even a pep talk. And I was just sort of blown away by the response that I got from just a wave of people that were understandably really impacted by this, and I just wanted to sort of try and help. And it's amazing to see how many other people like you and really others on LinkedIn have been all sort of reaching out to try to help this graduating senior class, as well as others impacted by this COVID recession we've got on our hands.
All right, so I managed to kill things even worse. Now we're all giant white square, but I can do that. I can get rid of that. Yes. All right. So that's what we're going to do, and all of you should know how to use our Q&A widget, our Q&A extension, so people can explain that, and we can start entering questions you want to ask of someone who came out during that time, came out into college, out of college into the Great Recession, because Max is passionate about helping. And yes, we know it's audio only, Duke. Thank you. We'll roll the audio only and do it that way in a minute if we have to. But I'm an engineer at heart, and having something that did work break is the kind of thing that pisses me off enough. I just have to play with it. I can't let it be. And so despite the fact many people from Devin's channel joined and I want to address you, I just can't help messing with it. I wouldn't be me if I didn't do that, because you already introduced yourself. So let's hit it.
Absolutely. I think that maybe the best place to start, just generally assuming that the folks that are watching this are interested in and potentially affected by, what's going on unemployment wise, that, I imagine that folks are seeing a lot of the things that I saw in 2009. And that's really the job market sort of drying up. And if you're younger and you're a graduating senior, maybe, or maybe you've graduated recently in the past year or so, you're probably seeing leads that you had or opportunities that you felt good about maybe dry up. I mean, I've seen tons of posts on LinkedIn from people sort of asking for help from their network, rightly so, because an internship offer or a full-time offer dried up. And I was mentioning earlier that so much of this is eerily reminiscent. In 2000 and late 2008, I had an internship. It was my senior year of college, 2008, 2009. I graduated in May of 2009. I had an internship at a small company in my college town that was sort of providing investor relations as a service. So think of companies looking to staff up with, the resources that you need to engage with the analyst community, with the investor community, with the mutual funds that are hopefully buying your stock. and the analysts again that are rating your stock. And so these folks had this really interesting idea, and it was a small company that would hire and give internships every once in a while to people at the college that I went to, a small school called Drew University in New Jersey. And so I was working at this place, and I felt really good about my opportunity to land a full-time job. I had been doing good work, or at least I thought I was, and I've been getting good feedback. And as Lehman Brothers collapsed in 2008 and the financial markets really started to contract, and the story that many of us sort of already know about what happened in 2008 and 2009 and all that financial market turmoil started to run its course, unfortunately, that company sort of had their investing around that they were planning on to use to fuel some expansion and to ultimately, give folks like me and a handful of other interns a job. That dried up. That sort of evaporated. And again, a very similar thing that I imagine. I'm not, we're really fortunate to be working at Amazon, so we don't see, a ton of impact there. But I imagine that lots of people are sort of seeing this, and that is what has driven this sort of outpouring of interest for folks like me. But again, I see it all over LinkedIn in terms of people being affected. So that's just a little bit about sort of the genesis of why I put the post up. And sort of, I guess, my story, my recession story, I guess, Ethan.
And tell a little bit, when you and I were preparing for this, tell a little bit about, so you were graduating. For those who don't know, and it's a lot of the people here, the recession started in the fall of 2008. You would have been a college senior. And so right when you were sort of in the heart of the job search in October, the financial crisis hit very suddenly. And I would say to that degree, this recession and that recession are the same in that things were kind of humming along. And then boom, suddenly it was all bad. And that was because of a bunch of bank collapses, essentially, or banks getting into trouble. This, of course, caused by COVID. In both cases, maybe the economy wasn't super solid, but whatever, that happened, and then suddenly you're there. What was it like to live through knowing you needed to graduate and get a job and looking forward to hearing all the bad news? What was your experience in that last year of college so that people who are in college now and graduating in a couple months virtually, or in college and graduating in a quarter or two, what would you share with them that experience was like?
There was a lot of stress, and I imagine people are feeling the same now. When you're graduating college, I had some student loans. I was planning on sort of supporting myself, and you plan to be a fully functioning adult and member of society. You've hopefully enjoyed your time in college, and I had a blast in college, but I was really looking forward to entering the workforce at that particular company. And when things dried up and I started to get a feel for the fact that unfortunately that wasn't going to materialize, I sort of scrambled, and I asked myself, listen, I've got these bills that are going to be coming due. I want to go and live on my own and not necessarily move back home. And I want to have some money in my pocket to be able to maybe to go out on a weekend. And I just sort of asked myself, who's hiring? And at the time, and I imagine that this is some of the advice I gave in a follow-up post that I wrote up to folks. I looked for jobs that were sort of open, and luckily found some sales related opportunities, and just some advice for people that I'll share here. And I'm curious what you think about this, but because sales is so often the sort of revenue engine of a business, right? Sometimes people like to say that sales keeps the lights on, but because sales roles are usually tied directly to top line revenue and hopefully a considerable amount of profit, those jobs are usually always hiring, or they're sometimes the last to go because again, they're the revenue engine. And so that's where the jobs at least materialized for me. And I could talk a little bit about the strange set of sales jobs that I took and what I left with after doing that sort of work. But that's where I looked, and that's where I would encourage people now to look, even if it doesn't feel like it's your dream job or feel like it's your dream career. those sales jobs are great sorts of opportunities often because again, they're usually hiring and they'll do a lot for you, which I can sort of talk about.
Yeah, well, that was the second thing we said we'd work on. We'd talk about while you were here. So I appreciate you sharing the experience coming out into the market. And we'll jump into resume reviews where I'll have Max review some of this. And I want to say for the audience at this point, tech problems aside, goddamn Zoom, uh, which isn't very nice of me to say, but obviously they changed some security settings. Um, for you, one of the things Max brings is he's 15 years closer to coming out of college than I am. So he's more relevant to all the people here looking for jobs and all the people who will eventually watch this on YouTube or listen to it on a podcast since there's nothing to watch except me struggling with Zoom. But the second thing is he's in sales and his degree is PoliSci. And so very different. It's a chance to talk to someone with a very different background than mine, coming from a different angle. Because, of course, I was pure what's now called STEM, not that STEM was called STEM back then. But I was very much in engineering, and I came out into an engineering job, and those have become super employable, and they're probably going to be fairly resistant they're going to have better employment prospects than maybe some other graduates, at least short term, because tech films are doing okay. Yeah, I said poli-sci, and now they think that you majored in polygamy science. Because chat always has something new to say. So...
This is what makes this great. I'm watching the questions in the stream come and it's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there are no jobs in poli-sci.
Yeah.
There are no political science jobs.
Yeah. And you and I talked about that. But what you can get from Max that you can't get from me, and I'm glad he's here, is you can get a perspective on sales jobs, which is one of the few things I've never really done. And B, you can get a perspective. I'm always talking engineering and so on. So, Max, my helpful mod squad covering the fact that I had my curtain too wide as well. So the workout room is back there, though. I'm not shy about it. I have a workout early tomorrow morning, so I got to get up and do that. Do share a little bit about what job you were able to find, how you found it, and what you learned in that job. Because when you were talking to me, and it's certainly okay to say that here, you said it was a crappy job. You said you didn't feel good saying that on stream, so I said it for you. The point being, you don't want to dishonor your employer who gave you a chance, and I do understand that. But it was a hard job. It was a grindy job, and it wasn't maybe what you dreamed of when you went to college. And so say a little bit about that and what you learned and got out of it, what type of role it was and what you learned and got out of it.
Well, thank you for saying what I didn't want to say, but to call a spade, it was a tough job. It was a job selling life insurance to people over the phone and using direct mail to do that. And the first thing I'll say is I have an immense amount of respect for people that choose that and ultimately find success in that career because it is grindy and it required a certain level of sort of grit and determination. And it really opened my eyes to two things. One, it opened my eyes to how good you can have it when you do find a great job. And so it gave me a really healthy perspective that I sort of carry with me today, and a gratitude. And I'll talk about that later and how I think that becomes a bit of a superpower. But it gave me something that I didn't realize would be beneficial down the road. And I'll talk about this. This is a persistent theme that I've sort of uncovered in my career, is that things that you don't necessarily think are going to be valuable to you, maybe a skill or a set of experience or something like this, down the road, can become incredibly important to you in ways you never just could have imagined because you were, doing your thing, trying to do whatever it was you were doing job wise. And this particular job, selling this insurance, it gave me these financial licenses what's known as a Series 6 license, a Series, I think it was a Series 63 license as well, and a handful of state-specific licenses. And all these numbers around these licenses, all they enabled me to do is they enabled me to sell financial products. You need these if you've ever worked with a financial advisor or with somebody in a bank, you need those to be able to communicate and educate consumers on financial products. Anyways, that experience helped me understand those financial products. And eventually, when the job market got sort of healthy again, well, actually, initially, let me take a step back. Having those licenses enabled me to get out of a really tough, grindy job and into a less grindy job, working actually in a bank for a period of time. And then eventually, I'll talk later, I guess, about how those licenses and some of the things that I picked up there helped me understand a different side of a business that I eventually joined once the economy sort of got back to normal hiring levels. But just to summarize, I think that the two things that job really showed me, that grindy, tough job early in sales, sort of hitting the phone selling that life insurance, was it gave me a healthy perspective and a sense of gratitude when I eventually did find better jobs. And I carried that with me today. And then it also gave me some skills that would benefit me, perspective on what it was like to sell financial products. And when I would eventually go and work at a business that manufactured financial products, so to speak, I had a really healthy appreciation and, candidly, a ton of respect for the people that were actually out there selling the products that we were sort of constructing at the corporation that I was at that time.
Cool. All right, folks. So it appears that I have some Zoom debugging to do offline before Sunday, because I've tried everything here. I deleted Zoom as a source, and Zoom just insists on showing up as a white box, which I know they made a bunch of security changes, and apparently OBS is no longer capturing well. So yeah, and I get Shadow. We'll figure it out later. Thank you. We'll do that after the stream. So we're going to have Max as an audio guest. It's just how it's going to have to be. Apologies for that, but that will allow me to concentrate on what's going on. So, Max, you wanted me to comment on grit, I think, and give a manager's perspective on that. Is that right?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that I felt while I was doing that sort of tough job, and while I was entering the workforce and realizing that I was going to have to scramble and do things that didn't feel like dream jobs, I was worried that some of the jobs that I was looking at and the jobs that I ultimately took would act as, I don't know, a blemish on some sort of a career permanent record that some big interesting company like an Amazon or something else down the road would look at and sort of hold against me as a demerit. And when we were talking, I think that we both agreed it's being on the other side of this now, it's anything but, right? It shows so much about grit and determination and the willingness to pick up experience, even if it's unsexy. But I'm sure that the audience would love a senior leader's perspective on that.
Yeah, and I'll give that. Okay. So my perspective on that is, look, actually, as a hiring leader, Jeff Wilke is the longtime number 2 guy at Amazon. In many ways, he's a member of the senior team. You can debate exactly if he's number 2 or not, but now he's chief executive officer of the retail business, so all of the selling of physical things. And what Wilke said, which I like, is he said, hey, we like our leaders and our employees well covered in scar tissue. And he particularly said that of leaders. And it was an honest comment, meaning we like people who have struggled and who have made some mistakes and felt some pain, not because we want to inflict pain on them, but because we want leaders who have faced adversity. And so what Max is talking about is going and doing that insurance sales job. And we have, I know they don't have to reveal themselves, but we have at least one healthcare insurance person in this stream. And so there are people who know that job intimately here. And I know it's a tough job from talking to that person as well. And so what I would say and what I want to share with you all is I, as a hiring manager, would rather hire someone who I know has worked hard and who has worked in a tough job, because I know if I'm able to give them a good job, they will appreciate it and they will not complain. They will do what they can to they will do what they can to be successful and to advance the business of the company. So having worked in one or more difficult jobs is an asset. Now, if you've worked your whole career in what looks like sort of very mediocre companies and you haven't advanced in them, yes, people will wonder why is that? Why? But not in a recession. So, yeah, there's someone here. There's questions in chat about how you talk it about a previous job, and you wouldn't want to call it a bad job. So, you wouldn't want to say, "Oh yeah, I work at a basically a shitty company." You would never talk down about your previous company, but there are ways to talk about it positively and to say, "Look, I'm working at a company where the work is not what I was hoping to do in the first stage of my career, but I've gotten a lot out of it. And here are the things I've learned. And I'm really looking forward to moving to a role that's more suited to my interest, etc." Right? And as Dome Kang says here in chat, say it was challenging. That's right. You apply positive words that everyone knows what they are. As Kristen says, in general, be respectful but honest. So, Max, since you want to help out, do you want to jump into some of these questions? And I will pin them. They'll show up on screen, but I'll also read them off as I take them. Do you want to jump in and do some questions before we tag team on resumes? All right, great. So, let's see. The first question is a little bit strange. We'll let our moderators pin it, but the question is, what is a sign that your employer, it says what is a sign that your employee is looking to lay people off, but I'm sure it means employer. If you have a job, when should you get worried? What would you say about that? I have a lot to say about that, Max, but I'll toss all of these to you first since you're our honored guest.
Sure. Yeah, that one's definitely a question for leaders. I'm an individual contributor, but I can tell you my 2 cents. I would say that if I don't know, not to use an Amazon term, but if the rhythm of the business has started to slow and you've noticed in your day-to-day that maybe orders are slowing down, or if you work at a manufacturer, manufacturing activity is slowing down, or you're seeing substantial supply chain constraints, or you're seeing customers leave, the writing will, I think, generally sort of be on the wall, you'd hope. That's not always going to be the case. I think that there'll be other instances where some employers, unfortunately, will take preemptive measures to try to trim costs and, lower their burn, so to speak. But if you're, I don't know, I would hope that you'd see some of the writing on the wall again by seeing sales activity, customer activity sort of fall off, maybe, big deals falling through, that sort of a thing.
Chat made me laugh. Dome Kang's a funny participant in our chat, and he says they start playing the Reigns of Castamere. Yeah, there's a lot of songs I wouldn't want to hear in this case. Danny Boy, the pipes are calling. Like there's a bunch of music that would not be good. So this is a good point for me to remind everyone that neither Max, who is an Amazon employee, nor I are speaking on behalf of Amazon or Twitch. We're here representing ourselves with our own opinions, and we certainly don't talk about Amazon or Twitch here. That said, I've shared with you before, chat, that I have worked at a company where I had to lay myself off along with a third of the company. I've worked at another company where I had to tell people we were out of money and I hoped they would come to work Monday because our VC, our venture capitalist, said they were going to give us a loan. But I couldn't guarantee them if they came back on Monday that they were being paid. I'd let them know when the paycheck was in the bank, but it wasn't in the bank right now. And those situations suck a lot. So look, Here's what I will tell you. This is going to be shocking to you. Maybe it won't. Every employer in America, or every leader in the world of a business, we'll go broader than America. Every leader in the world of a business right now is asking themselves, should we lay anyone off? They're asking. They're thinking about it. They are thinking about what are the signs where we need to change our workforce, and how much would we need to change our workforce? What would we do? Now, it doesn't mean everybody's going to lay off by any means. Some companies are hiring, and they have reason to hire because their business is up. But every company, somewhere in the leadership, they are thinking about it. And there are people here in chat who are leaders who have told me that they're thinking about it. Now, for example, Kristen commented, I can't imagine the emotional stress of going through that. Yeah, laying myself off, laying my team off, those sucked. And telling my team there was no paycheck in the bank. Layoffs stink. You're looking at a list of people who are good performers who you value, and you're considering, who can I live without, even though I want them all, even though they've all done good work. But answering the question, when is it going to happen? Basically, companies have money in the bank, however much that is, and they have from zero to a lot. And then they have money they're earning. And when they stop earning money, or when earnings slows down, they think about, how long can I hold out until I have to make a change. So, for example, I won't go into details, but everybody knows I'm on the board of the Washington Trails Association, and that's a charity. And it's a charity that does its work by working on trails in national forests and national parks, all of which in Washington are closed right now. And so they've furloughed a bunch of employees, and they've done a bunch of other changes because they've had to change. They've had to change their structure. And we have a bunch of leaders here I've talked to because they can't do their work, which means they're not going to get donations. They're not going to be in the public eye. They can't earn money from some of the work that earns them money. And so they've had to restructure and change, furlough a bunch of employees, where furlough basically, I'm a lay person here. It's not an exact definition. Furlough means temporary layoff. It means we hope to bring you back when things improve. So you're not actually just gone forever. You're gone for now. And we hope to bring you back in days or weeks or whatever. And there's limits to how long you can furlough someone. And I don't know any of those details. And I'm sure they vary state by state and country by country. But understand, if you have a job right now, your company is probably thinking, how long can they keep people? And the leaders who are in our chat, some of them have told me in Discord or elsewhere that they're going through that exercise right now. And so that's just real. What are the signs it's about to happen? Your business is very low. So like sales have slowed down or are zero, right? If you're a sales company, they're gone. You have no sales at all because you're shuttered, or no production at all, nothing to sell because your factory is shut. Or the company has very little money. So like a deep pockets company can keep people on longer because they're planning to weather it. And so I think the Discord command is reserved to mods, which is why that didn't work in chat for you there. Okay, so I think we both answered that. The way you know, though, here's another way. I'll tell you the inside way. When managers start sneaking into meeting rooms and are there all day and look very stressed out but aren't talking about what they're planning or what's going on, when the leadership suddenly goes silent and stops talking about the future of the company and goes very quiet, your first sign that layoffs may be coming is hiring stops. The second sign is if somebody leaves, They don't backfill them immediately. They don't go looking to even replace the people who have left. And the third sign is the managers all piled into rooms suddenly. The managers, the executives, whoever, whatever size company you're in, and not talking very much. And then, Dome Kang also says pay cuts. That's another. All of those are signs of a business in distress. If you work in accounts payable, are you not paying? Are you stopping paying bills? That's another sign. Like, you can just tell when a company's in trouble. And those are the different signs. So they aren't foolproof, but those are the things that would make me really worry. Now, the other thing that was said in chat, and I'll be brief, is this is why you want to make yourself indispensable, right? And indispensable looks like the company, like the CEO is going to let you go last right before he chains the door shut. And that's how you do it. So, and by the way, layoffs suck. Okay, the world economy is closed. There's going to be, unfortunately, fallout for that. So, Max, any reaction to that? And then we'll go on to the next question.
No, I think it's great.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. I think the next one is much better for you. So we'll go to the next question. And that question is, should students seriously consider starting their own side businesses? So what do you think about entrepreneurship, Max, as an option if you're in the student situation?
That's an interesting question. I think that entrepreneurship, when done with the right discipline, and I'll explain what I mean by that, could make for a fantastic way to spend, I don't know, we'll call it hopefully the next year or less of a difficult job market. What I mean by discipline, what I sort of wouldn't want to see is someone call themselves a CEO or a founder of a business that is very much more of sort of a hobby and a leisure sort of activity without the structure and, as I said earlier, the sort of organizational discipline that you'd want to see and ultimately learn a lot from in standing up a business. What I mean by that is if you're going to start a business, do it right. Build a business plan. Document your assumptions associated with that business plan. Build an Excel model that helps you understand what the unit economics of that business plan are, right? If you're going to, I don't know, if you're going to make jewelry, right, you should really understand, what your cost of goods sold are. Like, really immerse yourself in that business that you are starting. And I think you will get an immense amount out of that. And even if the business does not take off in the way that you expect, having a set of experiences to tap into and speak to in a job interview, I think will serve you well. More importantly, those scars of having a business that doesn't ultimately succeed, but one that was operated well, I think will serve you immensely well down the road as you sort of build back up into maybe a more traditional corporate career, because you will, I don't know, maybe be incredibly dangerous with Excel, which I think is candidly a superpower that everyone can sort of self-teach and pick up. Or maybe you're great at writing narratives or business plans because you had to iterate on one a handful of times to really land your strategy well. So that's what I'd say about entrepreneurship is you'd want to do it right and not just call yourself a CEO or a founder and sort of, I don't know, for lack of a better way to say it, half-ass it. What do you think?
Well, definitely half-assing is never good. So the question was about a side job versus pure entrepreneurship. And I totally get that. There's starting a side business, which is a good idea if you can. And there's pure entrepreneurship, like really starting a whole new business. And those are slightly different. First, if you can okay. Anytime a student can prove they have business acumen and make some money or show they tried something innovative and cool, do it 1,000 times over, even if all it does is buff your resume. Second, sorry for Kristen and others, excel in, if you are a business side non-tech person, Excel can be a complete superpower for sure. Excel, being able to analyze things, make a quick business model, look at a spreadsheet, ROI, incredibly powerful in business. And you can hate it. I hate sit-ups, which to the point of my workout tomorrow will be my joy. I crunches, loathe it. But you need Excel is super powerful. Going back though to starting a side business, if you have a way to demonstrate skills or be a part of something as a student, you should totally do it. Should you go start your own complete new business and try and be an entrepreneur, that's very risky. It depends on your risk tolerance. It depends on having an idea, customers, all kinds of other skills. If you have an entrepreneur's heart, which means you're totally game for taking a big flyer and realizing you may end up living in your car until it's repossessed and then living with your parents until you can dig your way out, it's the way to becoming a superb business person and potentially a billionaire. But it is not for the faint of heart. And so I have never started a company myself. I've never founded one. So I'll just say you have to have guts and you have to be willing to do whatever it takes. I don't mean unethically, but I mean work long hours and master different skills. You can't be like, oh, I'm only a salesperson or I'm only a marketer or I'm only an engineer. And I would say if you do that, try and get some partners. 2 or 3 minds are better than one if you're aligned with them and can share an idea. So, all right, cool. I think we answered that. Next question is, as someone coming out of college with a network full of fellow new graduates, how can I use LinkedIn to my advantage in the job search? I have some thoughts on this, but Max, take it away. What do you think about that? Because your network as a student is going to be mostly other students.
Yeah, that's a tough one. LinkedIn is just an incredible platform. I would say this. Anytime that you can use a technology, whether it's LinkedIn or even Twitter for that matter, to connect with someone and get your message out, maybe an ask for 15 minutes of time with that person or something like that. Anytime you could use a platform like that to really target a message to someone that you think can help you, maybe network your way into a role or into a company you're interested in, then I think you should do that. You should do that, respectfully and thoughtfully and not just spam people. But I think that LinkedIn is a great capability for that. The challenging thing being a graduating senior, because as this question calls out, you've only generally got graduating seniors in your network. I mean, you can follow people, you can add people. Generally speaking, people, I think, accept those connections. And then from there, you can message them. It's a little bit of a cold sort of outreach. But if you're thoughtful in the way that you engage with someone and you don't send them, a novella, but instead a quick ask, right? Here's who I am and here's what I'd love from, I'd appreciate 15 minutes. Here's why, and here's what I would love to cover, something to that effect. I think that those platforms could be pretty powerful to get you access to people that maybe you might not have been able to get access to otherwise. I don't know if I've answered the question. You probably have better thoughts on this one.
Actually, you've said a lot of the basics. It's good to have someone else because Max and I, by the way, Max reached out to me cold. His connection to me was he'd seen some of the stuff I've done and said, hey, I'm really passionate about this topic. Could we collaborate on it? And, here he is, except he's invisible. But and that's too bad. I feel bad about that, Max. I'm definitely going to feel bad about that until I fix it tonight. I got to find out. I think they must have changed something with security, as I've said. Anyway, coming back to the topic and stopping bringing myself back to the bummer, I'm going to speak directly to this. So the right thing to do is branch out your network and build your network before you need it. But let's assume you're screwed and you only have a network of new grads. Here's the good news for you. Most of your fellow new grads are not going to use that network. They're going to sit around in it doing other things, being useless and failing. And that's harsh, and I'm sometimes harsh, But here's the best thing for everybody in chat, whether you're looking for a job or not, whether you are a new grad or not, most people in life are lazy. And most people aren't doing anything innovative. They're busy bemoaning their fate, gazing at their navel, and waiting for the government to rescue them. And if you do more than that, you will excel. And how do you do that with this set of new grads? One of them will get a job somewhere. And one of them will know where they got a job, or they'll know about jobs. The point is, if you're reaching out to those other people in your network full of new grads, you can be the first person to find out where did they get a job, where are the leads. And so you, whether you're an extrovert or you're an introvert who has to muscle up, and you're an introvert who has to do it all through teaching or reaching out, and all through electronics, so you don't have to talk to people. If you take the initiative and do the networking to engage those people, you will be the first one to get help and find out who's hiring. And because no unemployment is permanent, and no situation is permanent. And some of those new grads are going to get jobs. And so if you chase that network, you will still get results. It's not as effective as a professional network, but what is effective is hard work. And if we haven't talked about this, but we haven't pulled up my book list yet. But if you go to my book list, which the mods will pop up, and look at the book, What Color is My Parachute? If you're going out into the job economy now, or if you got laid off and need to find a job, this is your choice. Like this book will tell you how. And for all of you, I saw all of you joking when I was ranting, because we didn't have a planned rant, and so that was the rant. So if you're a sub, this is your chance for the rant icons in chat. Laziness and not being motivated, I can't help you with that. I actually can't. Like, go rob a bank, put the money into lottery tickets, and hope for the best. Hope not to get caught in the robbery, and then hope to hit it in the lottery. And even that's probably too much motivation, because like, oh, who am I going to rob? And I don't have a mask. And, it's bad. So yeah, Duke, report back. Let me know. Duke's in Canada, though, so they probably have very nice bankers. You can probably just go into the bank and ask politely for help, and that'll work just as well. There you go. Rob a hospital first to get a mask. So the point is, I can't help you if you don't want to work. But if you want to work effectively, the good news I can give you is you just heard it here in chat from all the people who don't want to work. So if you do just the tiniest little itsy bitsy pathetic effing thing, it'll be more than everyone else. And I'll turn this back to Max in this sense. You're now in sales. How much does effort make the difference?
It's everything. Effort, determination, call it what you want. I think that if you're thoughtful about it, it's really everything, to be honest.
Yeah. So this is someone who made his life, and he started with selling insurance, which is a hard sell, and now is selling AWS, which is a much easier sell, but still, big money and long sales cycle. Jobs is selling. It's selling yourself. It's better than a prison cell. I'll agree with that. So anyway, we're going to go to the next question. Does being in a recession mean there is no longer any room for negotiating salary? Does this depend on the type of job you're trying to get? This is a great question. What do you think, Max, on this one. And
So
again, by the way,
question,
there's very few votes on questions. So if you want to change what we're going to answer, just go vote. And if you don't, sit back and listen. Go ahead, Max. Sorry.
the question was about starting salary. Sorry, I
The question was, in a recession, can you negotiate salary, or do you need to take what you're offered? Essentially,
this is interesting. We sort of talked about this in our prep.
Yeah.
I think that there's two questions inside of this question. There's how much experience do you have and how much leverage do you have, regardless of the economic climate? And then there's the economic climate to consider. I think that these are the two things you want to be thinking about in any sort of salary negotiation setup, or honestly, in any negotiation generally, right? How much leverage do I have in this negotiation to barter for what I want or what I think is fair? And what is the sort of, what's the context? If you are a college grad and this is your first sort of shot at professional experience, and the job market is contracting in ways, I mean, just go to the New York Times and pull up the weekly jobless claims numbers, and it breaks the x-axis on the chart, or the y-axis on the chart, right? So it's probably not the time, if you are a college graduate, to try to really negotiate salary, unless for whatever reason maybe you feel that it is unfair or far below what you're worth. But people usually have interesting takes on this. I've heard that some people who hiring managers who don't see someone negotiate a salary see it as a potential weakness. What's your take on that old sort of euphemism there, Ethan?
Sorry, what's the euphemism again?
I guess there's like a rumor, I guess, that I've heard that hiring managers, I've never been a hiring manager myself, hold it against the candidate if they don't negotiate a salary because they didn't negotiate their salary.
Good question. So first, I'll say, without getting into it in detail, a lot of large companies have fixed new hire offers if you're just coming out of college. So you can't really negotiate. And the reason there, as an example, let's use Microsoft, who I hear does this, I don't know. If you're Microsoft, you're making offers to 5,000 new college students, literally. You don't want to negotiate all those, because when you raise one, then the question is, why didn't you raise them all? So they're fixed at that level. Second, but in a higher level job, I would say in a sales job, if you don't negotiate, they're going to wonder what the hell's wrong with you, even in a recession, because sales is negotiation. And negotiation will rarely, let me say this, we had Shadowfox on, she's one of our mods, and she talked about, we worked together to get her recent job, and she really didn't want to negotiate because negotiation is scary if it's not what you do for a living. And she really wanted the job and was afraid they'd just be like, screw you, we're taking it back. Like, you ask bad questions, go away. You're not even hired, but if you were, you'd be fired. And the truth is, companies don't do that. Negotiation is expected. So answering this question, you can certainly negotiate. You can ask. They won't take your job away. They won't even think badly of you for asking. You may, in a recession, though, get a lot more, hey, man, it is what it is. Take it or leave it, than you would in a positive time. Even then, though, here's what happens in recession job hunting. I have fewer roles. This isn't actually literally true of me, but let's say I'm a hypothetical hiring manager at Acme Inc. My company isn't hiring as many people as it was. So I have maybe last year I got to hire 5 new people. Kristen, who's here in chat, she's hiring like 5 people. Maybe next year she'll get to hire 1 because the company is not growing. Or, not to make it personal to her, but I knew she was hiring several. I'm hiring 1. Well, now I want the perfect person. So once I get to the job offer and I've decided you're that person, and I've looked through the 1,000 applicants, I'm going to be very hesitant to lose you over a few dollars, because bizarrely, what I pay you, like the difference between paying you $50,000 and $53,000 is not nearly as material as whether or not I hire the right person. And so bottom line is, I think you can still negotiate. what I wouldn't do is turn down a job hoping for a better one later. That's like, in other words, I would be tempted to take the bird in the hand rather than hope for the perfect job later. And I want to take a second. Hephaestus resubbed to us. I think it was 8 months I saw go by. Fronts 808 resubbed a second month. I appreciate all the subs. Thank you for supporting the stream. And all that money goes to the WTA, which is struggling now because of COVID and the impact where their work, like many others, is impacted. So with that, let's see. Let's go on to the next question. I'll set Max up on that, and then I'm going to try one more thing just because I have to fix video. We'll see what happens. But
I have such a cool room I'm in. It would be cool. I got my Saturn V rocket behind me.
You're like teasing and trolling chat now. You're a Twitch native. By the way, Max really wants, he's in chat. He's been shown up there, and he wants to start a Twitch stream. He needs someone to go, he wants someone to go coach him. Well, I don't know if he wants it. He wasn't able to figure it all out. So if there's someone who feels they're a Twitch setup rock star, and I'm not talking to my own mods, you don't have to do double duty. But if you want to help him figure it out, and Shadow, I know you can if you want, but if somebody else wants to, you can connect to him and offer to give him a hand, assuming you're still interested.
Let me explain my use case. Actually, it's very particular. I'm trying to connect with a younger audience that is interested in, is obviously interested in streaming and video games, but I'm trying to help them understand. I do some volunteer work, and I'm trying to help this audience understand that if they like video games, and these are high schoolers, middle schoolers, if they like video games, you can play video games, but there is a whole world of great careers in the video game industry that don't involve you being Ninja or Tfue or some Dr. Disrespect or like some streamer with millions of subs. There's a whole great world of careers. Anyways, and that's I'm trying to get Twitch. I'm trying to deliver that training via Twitch and then have my PowerPoint slide show up at the same time with the video. It's like the most basic use case. Can't figure it out with the Twitch streaming tools. Invite open. DM's open for help is what I'll say. Anyways, end plug.
All right. And K-Vol, thank you for coming and hosting. Welcome in. A new member of our Discord community, by the way. Let's see. As a follow-up, we'll take the follow-up because I like to stay on topic. Then we'll go to the next question. As a follow-up, would you be reluctant as a hiring manager to underpay an individual based on pre-COVID-19 salary ranges for fear they might leave? A good company is going to be afraid of underpaying. A bad company is going to take advantage of people. So, by the way, in a recession, take whatever pays your rent. If you're out of a job, take a job. Having a job on your resume is better than being unemployed for a long time, at least in America where unemployment's limited. I would say if a bad company, though, if the company is clearly exploiting you because they're like, there are no jobs right now, so you're going to take this one and work very hard, right? If they seem like they're evil, they probably are, and it's not going to get better. So what you do at that point is you go get the money that you need to live, and you keep looking and building your skills. Yeah, that's right. For me to play, that's my Palpatine. I wasn't doing it on purpose, but yes. I can do I can go, we can go Slytherin. We can go, there's a lot of directions. I have a lot of evil boss voices, and you take that any way you want. And a lot of evil laughs too. You're all screwed. So the point is, if you get in those situations where you're being exploited, you just know what the score is. And as soon as things get better, you jump. But I would not underpay somebody. Look, I'm investing for the long term. And Max and I are lucky enough to be at a company that's long-term focused, right? And so that's a fantastic situation to be in. And we're going to hire for the long term because I'll tell you what I told my team about this, and we'll see if Max, is your team, can you say, I mean, AWS is hiring like crazy, and I don't think So I assume your team around you is hiring a ton of people, right?
Yeah, yeah. A quick
Okay.
search in the job categories on Amazon.jobs will show you.
Yeah. So the last time I looked, AWS, of which Max is a part, had 10,000 open jobs, and that hasn't changed. What we're doing right now that's important that you should hear is we're looking at the economy and saying this is very unfortunate that people are out of work, but it is a chance for us to scoop up talent that used to not be available, to go scoop up talent from other companies that are in trouble. So let's take an example. I understand that one of our local, Max, are you based in Seattle?
I am. Yeah.
Okay. So one of our local employers, Boeing, has offered all their entire company. They've offered them early retirement which is basically a voluntary layoff. And Hephaestus just said the same thing. You can go hire all the best people in the travel industry, for example. And there are plenty of people who sell travel products. And there are people who sell airplanes. And believe me, selling airplanes is probably as complicated as selling enterprise AWS services, which is what Max does. Also hard. So we're looking at this as a chance to go get better talent. Like, hey, the swimming pool just got deeper. Good news. Now, it's bad news. We're not gloating. I want to be really clear. No one is gloating about the situation, but the situation exists. And so the truth is, if there's more people out there who weren't before, you're like, great, how do we find them? We have 10,000 open jobs. They were open yesterday. They're going to be open today. How do we go fill them with the new people who are available? You want to add to that, Max?
No, I think I mentioned this in a post that I followed up with my sort of first LinkedIn post after I started to see some trends, and I wanted to just post something that would live on and folks could access whenever. This idea of there are industries that are going to thrive amidst this unfortunate sort of situation. If you look at the way that our work styles have changed, right? The use of remote, what we're using right now, although I'm just a white box, Zoom is business is booming for Zoom.
You're not even a white box anymore, by the way. We just dispensed with you entirely. You're just a disembodied voice.
Yeah, that's right. And there, so you sort of want to, I don't know, not to use an old euphemism, but you sort of want to fish where the fish are, right? There are industries like, if you're a fan of Slack, if you're a fan of other sort of remote work or sort of collaboration technologies, those businesses as a whole are just seeing huge increases in demand for their technology. And, you know, I don't know your perspective on this, Ethan, but we may have had a fundamental sort of, not to use a $10 word, but a paradigm shift here in the way that remote work is thought of by large corporations that have been historically reluctant to allow people to work from home. Now that everybody's had to work from home, I think that a lot of companies may be a little bit more open to that. And all that's going to do is feed demand for some of these other sort of technologies that I've just rattled off, in addition to the ecosystems that support those technologies. So this is a long-winded way of saying, you know, the enterprise technology space, the software as a service space, these are businesses that are going to be growing. And to your point, whether it's a big company like Amazon or maybe even a smaller company like a Zoom or a Slack, they're going to be out there looking for talent from lots of different industries, whether it's travel or the airline industry, you name it. Talent is talent. And I agree that a lot of people, I mean, I would love to have people that sold airplanes on my team for sure. I mean, that's a big, complicated sale.
Right, exactly. So if you have skills, you'll be valuable. And you have a fan here, someone who joined with the name Team Tynan in chat.
I love it.
Who correctly says every company is 50% to 70% technology. I'm not sure that's true, but there are plenty of tech people. There's plenty of roles that are going to do well. Answering this question a different way, well, I see there's some other questions here that I want to get to about tech companies. So let's move on. We've pinned the next question already. It says, if you're unhappy with your current job, but the job is stable, is it a bad idea to look for a new job where you risk being laid off? What I can tell you is we had someone join our team this last week who said, I was looking at both Amazon and a startup, but I don't feel comfortable with a startup in this environment. So I'm going to take the Amazon job because Amazon seems great. Now, we could be all offended that like they were also looking at a startup, but the truth is they chose stability, and that makes sense in bad times. This question, if you're unhappy, it depends on your risk tolerance and your situation. Are you the sole breadwinner with 3 children and a spouse? I might suck up a little unhappiness. Are you debt free, already living on the cheap with some savings built up and okay with some hardship? Go chase your dreams. It depends on your situation. But Max, repeating the question for you, if you're unhappy with your current job, but the job is stable, is it a bad idea to look for a new job where you risk being laid off? Because I won't necessarily say you were unhappy in your first job, but you did say it was very tough. And so how did you actually think about this question back in the day?
I tried to approach this way. I didn't want to take for granted what I had, despite the fact that it was tough, but it was paying my bills and it was giving me valuable experience. But I was really intentional about where I wanted to get to. Not to the point where I knew exactly what I wanted to be doing in like 10 years or anything like that, but I knew I wanted some sort of a change. I wanted something that, was different. And what I did was I used the sort of, mental capacity, so to speak, that insurance sales job freed up for me, to spend some time at night, at the end of the day maybe, and then on the weekends and stuff, to just really be thoughtful about, okay, when this job market opens back up, where do I want to go? And I just made a plan. I'm maniacal about writing things down, and I even found it the other day. I found this little folded piece of paper that said Plan B, and I opened it, and there were like 7 companies, 2 of which don't even exist anymore, and what I was going to apply to. So I was just really, it's a little artifact reminding me of how intentional I tried to be about where I wanted to go. Listen, the answer to the question is, I don't think it hurts to look. An employer should not fire you unless you're, blatantly looking for other jobs and updating your resume in the middle of a meeting or in the middle of a day, for being interested in other career opportunities down the road. I would be thoughtful and, and respectful about the way that you're approaching that. But I don't imagine you're going to get fired because you're interested in other things. You just don't want to be so overt about it. But it's okay
No,
to.
I think the question was more, would you trade? It's the trade-off between an unpleasant but stable job and a better, in your opinion, but riskier job. And I think that comes down to your risk tolerance, which in part, if you're wise, should come down to your situation. How risk tolerant can you afford to be? If you can afford to take risk, risk is usually rewarded. If you can't afford to take risk, you may end up with a lot of pain you don't want. Like, that's the sound bite, I think, about that.
Yeah. So I'll actually say that situation, the context, wherever you are in your life is so important. How I came to Amazon, just a little quick story. When I moved to Seattle, where I live now, have met my wife here. I've lived here for the past 6 years. I moved from New York City. I did not know a single person in Seattle. And I moved here for Amazon. And I did it because I was so smitten with the idea that this amazing company would want a sort of, regular person like me. And it has just totally changed my life. But that risk that I took, moving to a city I didn't know anybody, working at a company that I didn't think I was smart enough to work at, I was only able to take those risks because at that point in my life, when that opportunity opened up, I was single, living in somebody's living room in New York City with my roommate, splitting a 1-bedroom into two bedrooms. And I was just sort of ready for something new. I didn't have a family or anything to support. So I was incredibly fortunate to be ready to take that risk, to your point, Ethan.
Sweet. All right. Next question. This one's a good one. And we're going to speed up a little because I want to get through a few questions and then we'll hit a couple resumes and then we'll see about speed running the rest of the questions. But with all the tech stuff, we got slowed down a little. So we'll go a little long here. So how insulated do you feel tech companies are from hiring reductions or freezes? And again, we don't speak for Amazon, but the tech industry in general, which obviously Max serves through AWS, Do you have any opinions you want to offer on that of your own perspective, Max?
Yeah, again, my perspective is only here. I think that technology is, long term the place to be. So many businesses. I think I saw a comment earlier from somebody about, many businesses. I don't know, 50% to 70% of companies are technology businesses. Probably not that high, but more and more businesses are realizing, are waking up to the fact that technology is core to what they do. Whether they make shoes or whether they sort of make internet software, technology is core to so many businesses in the 21st century. And so the technology businesses that support and provide the underlying technologies that, manufacturing companies, retailers, healthcare providers, the sort of, in-person type businesses are now using to run their organizations, I think are going to generally do well. So I would bet long-term on technology if you're sort of open to placing a bet on a career in an industry, just because of, I don't know, I mean, I can get into my thoughts on the metaverse and what the future holds and all that sort of a thing, but I won't go down that rabbit hole. But yeah, absolutely, I think technology will continue to grow.
So that's a general statement. I agree. I think if you're looking, whoever sent this in and everybody else, for a clearer diagnostic, a focused one, you would ask, what industry does that tech company serve? So, for example, Expedia, that serves the travel industry, I don't know if they're going to struggle, but I would be much more suspicious of Expedia right now than of, say, Slack or Zoom or Discord or, as someone says here, any telepresence company or any company that serves the healthcare industry. Like, these are industries that are booming. And so I think for a tech company, they are resistant to hiring reductions and freezes in the sense that they can work from home. And so their ability to do work is not destroyed because almost all technology companies can go work from home. But it still depends on who their customers are. And so if they're deeply invested in a customer segment that is closed right now, for example, I think it's going to be a very long time before live events happen, not only because of COVID itself, but because of the fear halo. So, for example, I have a good friend. He founded the company Atom Tickets. Atom Tickets helps sell tickets to movie theaters. He's moved on from that company, but I'm familiar with Atom Tickets. And going to, when is the next time you're going to want to go sit cheek by jowl for 2 hours in a closed room with 300 other people? Like, doesn't seem like, even if the world is declared safe, I think movie theaters are in trouble. Who knows? I could be wrong. But the point is, Atom Tickets, as an example, and I have no connection with this other than my friend founded it. I think they'd be in deep shit, right? Like, and so that's where I think, even though they're a tech company and they can do all their work remote, that's where you have to think about it. So, well, Keval, you're braver than I am. Okay, how did you stay motivated to start/keep looking in a time of recession? So I've also done this, Max, but I'll let you take that one first.
Yeah, that's probably one of the hardest things, because you have these good days and bad days, right? Like anything you're working on project wise, as you're, I don't know, as you get hits and you do interviews and you think they go really well, it's hard. I remember distinctly before Amazon, actually, I was interviewing. I made it to the final round of an interview at a startup, which I won't name here, but it's just a fantastic startup, an amazing business. I was so excited about the fact that I had sort of progressed my way through it. And right before I was scheduled to fly out to to Mountain View to do my final sort of interview with a founder at the company, they sort of called me and told me that they weren't going to proceed. And I just remember sort of being devastated. I had even bought my first roller bag, my carry-on bag to make the trip. I had counted on it, and it was devastating. And I remember sitting in Madison Square Park at the time and just being really sort of upset about it, but also telling myself that there was another 100 other sort of companies to look out for, and really just trying to sort of pick myself back up. I think that the minute that you start to feel, it's okay to feel negative or to feel sad and hurt about emotionally sort of distressed about a job not landing the way that you thought it would, or an offer not coming through, or not getting the sort of hits you're looking for. But persistence amidst that adversity is the only thing that is going to get you through that adversity. Feeling sorry for yourself is not going to get you anywhere other than feeling worse. And so I think that the trick is to do your best to sort of compartmentalize that feeling and move on quickly, because that adaptability is what's going to keep you moving forward. And to your point, Ethan, differentiate you from some folks that maybe deal with those setbacks. I mean, life is full of setbacks. The faster that you can sort of process those and move on, and sort of learn from that pain, the better off you'll be. It's one of my favorite things from Ray Dalio, right? Pain plus reflection equals growth. It's a fantastic way to think about life.
Yeah. So pain definitely drives growth. I've talked about that on stream before. Discomfort drives adaptation. But I have a different experience, and I have a specific suggestion besides suck up the pain that may help people. So it turns out, essentially, there's support groups for job seekers. And those support groups aren't just we all stand in a circle like Fight Club and cry on each other. But instead, they're support groups in the sense that they're networking groups. And so whether it's, they'd be virtual now, not meeting in person, but whether it's in your community or your chamber of commerce or your town or wherever, you can find a group of job seekers, and they're there to network because I may find a job that isn't a fit for me, but is for you, and so on. So one way to build a network quickly is go find the local job seeking network. And these exist in every town, in every business. But here's the thing. Being able to, there are two things you get out of those job networks. Number one, or I always do this, I add more. Number one, you get to see that other people are doing what you're doing. And so you don't feel bad because like there's others there. Number two, and I hate to say this, you'll see that some of them aren't doing it as well as you. So you'll feel like, well, at least I'm, it's not a great way to feel good, but it is the comparative, like, well, I'm doing more and better than Bob. Bob seems like really hosed. So I feel like a leg up. Number three, most of those networks, they ask people to come back and report success, or people who've been in them, they come back to the network and they say, hey, I got a job. And so most of you know I got laid off in 2003. I had just adopted my daughter. And so I had in the previous recession to the last one, which was the dot-com bubble, my company shrank and shrank and shrank, and finally they shrank me too. So like, honey, I shrank the Ethan. My wife had just left her job to be a stay-at-home mom. we had adopted a daughter. And so we had gone from double income, no kids to double kids, no income. It was only one kid, which was not the way to do it. Like, do not do what I did. But I got laid off and I felt shitty, like we're talking about. And I was demotivated. But I got to go. I went to one of these job networking things to get leads because I needed to find work. I needed, I did the like, here's my amount of money and watching it go down. And like, this is where, we can no longer make the car payment. And this is where we can no longer make the house payment. And I had a relatively short time. It was very supportive to talk to other people, to learn what they were doing and trying, to share what I was doing. And I'm like the last, if the long-term viewers here, like, I'm not a hugely empathetic person in some ways. And like, I'm certainly not like a, let's all stand in a circle and let me tell you my woes. It was super valuable. So, It's a type of networking, and I highly recommend it as a tool to keep your motivation up.
I
Basically,
imagine there'll be tons of these, given
yeah, and
the
it's a
fact
way
that
to know
everybody's
you're
doing it.
not alone. That's the whole point, is feeling like it's only you who can't get a job sucks worse than not getting a job only. It's double suck. Uh, did you have to settle for a job you hated to fill that role as your first job back into the force? Well, I ended up with the worst job of my life out of it. I didn't know that was going to happen. Um, but I took a job that didn't work out. I won't go through all the gruesome details here, but I took a job out of my industry. I took a job that ended up being poorly led and poorly funded, but it was a paycheck. Now, there's a silver lining to this. I was still at that job. That was one of the jobs where I had to tell people there's no paycheck left, but I hope you come back Monday anyway. I had to lay people off or be part of laying people off with no severance, just like, hey, so today's your last day, and sorry, that's it, goodbye. Like, really gross. Um, because we had no money. And so, anyway, it's not a good excuse. It was shitty run. The point is, Amazon called because I had my resume out because I was at this horrible experience, and Amazon called. And so that job did lead me here, but that job itself was not the best place. So, all right, cool. Let's keep going. How do I make myself indispensable during an internship, especially during a recession? Max.
That is a good question. I think internships can be challenging because sometimes in internships, or often in internships, you're sort of given a very specific project or thing. Do this. A lot of internships follow, at least big companies, I think, follow sort of regimented programs, and so it's tough to sort of iterate outside of the box. So I guess you have two options. If you're given that sort of playbook, and you're dropped in and given a very specific project, I think you knock the doors off the project, and you do it in a way, you look around at your peers and you sort of figure out where that bar is, and you figure out a way to raise that bar relative to what's important to that company. I think, that would be one way to do it. Another way to do it, to make yourself indispensable, is to find something that the company, that is important to the company, or the people that you are working with at the company or for at the company, that isn't being solved for, and figure out a solution for it. And ideally, maybe, prototype or test that solution and bring that data back, and run a little sort of experiment. I think that if you can show that you can innovate with some discipline and some structure, if, you'd have to find the right sort of company that appreciates that sort of a thing, coloring outside the line, so to speak. That could be an interesting way to sort of make yourself indispensable. What do you think?
I think chat's all over this one in different ways, and Sudi McTootie is looking to get himself fired, but not by me. I don't know where he works. Anyway, couple things. Number one, it's all about the secret weapon is whether your internship is tightly structured or appreciates you breaking out or not. Relationships. People bend over backwards for people they like, and they hose down people they don't like. And so be friendly and useful. Build those relationships, even if it kills you as an introvert to get up the energy to like network with people and ask about them and whatever. Do it. More critical than ever. Second, though, in internships, what we have found, because we've done thousands and thousands of internships at Amazon, and we've studied what makes those interns successful or not in the future, it's how fast they start delivering real value. So interns who come in, and this applies to DT Twitch Talk because he's joining my team as an intern, and he's here, and it's going to be virtual. Now, he's not going to be able to be present with us or in Seattle. You want to deliver value your first week. The single biggest discriminator was the people who jumped in and did something valuable, even if it was small, and got going on real work, as opposed to the people who are like, well, I need to learn the lay of the land and I'm not comfortable making changes yet. Jump in and deliver something, however small, and like ask the question, What can I get started on? What could I do for you today? And then do it that night. Look, again, going back to the point I made earlier in my last rant, most of your fellow interns are going to be coasting and lazy. Even at good companies, they're going to be relatively somewhat coasting and lazy. And if you just decide not to be quite as coasty or quite as lazy, you'll stand out. Like, this isn't, I got to be clear too, and it's sad. Okay, at Amazon, this is a little tougher, but at a lot of places you are, this isn't a very high bar. It scares the hell out of me. I have a bunch of friends who work at Boeing because I live in a Boeing town. And they tell me they make the fucking airplanes. I'm cussing now because I'm mad. They make the airplanes I sit on. And like, they tell me how they basically structure their day to figure out how to do as little work as possible. And it just horrifies me. But they're like, man, I'm in the union, or like, we take a long lunch break and then we ask some questions. They just have this scheme to get down to like, their 8-hour day becomes 17 minutes of work, like 8.5 in the morning and 8.5 in the afternoon between the point is, that is some of your competition. You only have to do like this much better. And it's not that I don't want you to do this much better, but it's okay if you can start really small. Just do a little bit more than the person next to you who's laying flattened out on the floor, like unwilling to even lift a finger and just like, won't somebody hand me a fat paycheck? And I realize I'm being derogatory. I know many people have many struggles, and that's not what I'm after. It's just, it doesn't take that much to differentiate yourself.
Could I just mention something about differentiation? Please. So I think that a lot of the people that may be watching this or listening to me, they may have to take or may have already taken, one of these tough jobs that we keep talking about, these unsexy sort of grindy jobs. What that will do for you down the road, if and when you land at a great company or a dream company of yours, is it will provide you a differentiator, because you will feel an immense amount of gratitude because you know how bad it can be and how hard it can be. So as these other folks, as Ethan is saying, unfortunately may sort of, coast and find ways to work as little as possible, that perspective that you have from working that tough job or a series of tough jobs will serve you so well as a differentiator. And so, if you are doing one of those tough jobs, or if you're going to have to do one of those tough jobs, do your best to remember that that'll serve you well down the road, that perspective, when things do start to break your way. Easy for us to say now, but just try to remember that on those tough days, that'll serve you well in the fullness of time.
So there's a question I should address here. Thank you, Max. That was awesome. And by the way, you should find out who your buddy Team Tynan is, because good observations, he or she is always making good observations in chat and would be a good long-term member of the community. That said, what I will say is, someone asked me, why are people lazy? And that's a fair question. Okay. There's a lot of reasons, and they're not always, some people just really are lazy. My stepson here, freely admits he's just very lazy. And Shadow Fox says survival. That's actually not completely false. Our brains are wired to economize energy. You don't want to waste energy. Because, it used to be like, it's a survival trait, it's a finite thing, finite resource. But people in chat, I love this, when chat is putting things forward, they are saying path of least resistance, fear of failure. We have Rockstar here, says he's lazy as fuck too. There's lots of reasons people can be lazy or unmotivated. They can be crushed by personal circumstances in their life, by mental circumstances, by abuse as a child. They can be burnt out. They can feel unappreciated. They can have been put down by their boss in the sense of scolded for going beyond. I once had a guy I needed him to do something in a different context, in a different job. And he actually said the words, "I ain't making no damn decision." He had been spanked so much for taking risk. And he was in sort of a grindy long-term job where it probably paid okay, but you didn't want to rock the boat. He said, "I ain't making no damn decision." And that it wasn't he was a bad person. He had been taught making decisions doesn't pay off. Like following the rules pays off. And, I was asking him to make a decision. The point is, there is something that leads people to decide, you know what, fuck it. I'm just going to go with the flow. I'm going to roll with it as it is. And I'm not going to do anything dangerous or aggressive, but or innovative, because those things aren't rewarded. They've been taught that those are not rewarded. What I would say about it is, you can get by that way, but you have to fight it and you can stand out. And that is a choice. If you're totally happy with what putting in moderate effort will get you, and other things are more important in life, go for it. That's at least a choice. In other words, you can have other priorities. I find working hard and accomplishing things makes me happy. So I'm chasing happiness. I'm not chasing extra work. I'm chasing the satisfaction of accomplishment. But you have to find your own path there. I think a lot of people, though, they essentially have been spanked in one way or another for trying to innovate, and so they give up. As opposed to, I want to be fair here. It's the last thing I'll go on then, so we keep answering questions. I've watched very carefully as people hit setbacks. So I was laid off. That's a setback. Max came out into a hard economy. That's a setback. Most people can overcome one setback. If you give them two, like an illness or a death in the family, it gets harder. If you give them three, like a second personal problem or a downturn in the industry, actually, a lot of people can't climb out of three setbacks at once. I've just observed one setback, a lot of people can overcome. Two setbacks, some people can overcome. Three, most start not to. And then, of course, you have those people who overcome 6 types of adversity, right? They have these horrible personal circumstances and, we'll list them all. I grew up in a poor country with no education, and I'm physically disabled, and, I was captured by rebels and tortured, and I'm a minority, eventually it stacks up. There's somebody here who says she can really thrive under adverse circumstances, which is great. Some people can. All right, cool. How do I make myself, so we answered this, especially during reception, stand out, do more, deliver value day one. Let's move on, mods. We'll go to the next one. What are the most important things young people miss on their online professional profiles? Quick answer, Max. We're going to go a little bit into speed mode so we do resumes. What's your tweet length answer on that? And I'll do the same.
Young people miss on their online professional profiles. Proficiency in, no, everybody has proficiency in PowerPoint or Excel. I don't know. I don't have a good answer to this one.
Okay, fair. That's short. I think what people miss is to add some sort of something that makes them stand out, even if it's just personal, something that makes them memorable or unusual. In other words, there's lots of profiles, something that makes you remarkable, not in a super negative way, but something, an interest, a passion. Everyone is passionate about something. Even the lazy people are passionate. A few of them are passionate about how lazy they can be, but put something in there that shows your passion so that it's clear that you are excited about something I can attach to. Something you can lock onto. And chat, you're doing a great job today. You're super active. There's lots of good advice in chat. I always encourage that because I don't believe I have all the answers. So we're going to do one more question, the one with 3 votes, and then we're going to do a resume, and we'll come back to the others. But I like this one, Max. It's good for you. Would taking a year off to travel or take care of family during this recession be a negative remark on a resume, especially at the FANGs, so the Facebook, Apple, Netflix, Google, Amazon companies?
I don't think that taking a year off to travel or definitely to, I mean, listen, if you're going to care for a loved one for a year, I would, I would say kudos to you. That's admirable. But B, you wouldn't want to let yourself atrophy mentally. So find a way to be productive, read more than you ever have, work on a passion project, level up. I mean, listen, the internet is the world's, you know, I don't know, Naval says something to the effect of like the internet is like the biggest democratizer of information ever. Use that in the downtime that you'll have in taking care of someone. And if you're traveling, do the same. Don't just like, drink martinis in Capri. Find a way to read and ensure you're not sort of mentally atrophying is what I'd say to that one.
Well, I have to issue an important correction. No one should drink martinis in Capri. If you're in Capri, you drink limoncello.
That's right.
It is the only valid drink in Capri. Definitely not martinis. But because it's awesome, and I may have some tonight. I'm just saying. But anyway, and I'm not even in Capri. It's also true that right now taking a year off to travel may be tricky. But look, having a gap year, it depends on what you do with it and how you position it and what you did before and after. But gap years have become standard as long as you can explain what you did with them. Yeah, I said Capri. It's actually Capri. But I was sticking with the pronunciation given. I think of it as Capri anyway. And we want to be clear about that.
Absolutely. I honeymooned there. I honeymooned in Anna Capri.
So we should talk.
Yeah.
My favorite hotel there is Da Gelsomina.
Oh, okay. Caesar Augustus for me.
All right. Well, I'll have to look it up. But Anna Capri is just
magical.
Awesome. Yeah, it's magical. All right. So I would say gap years are fine. They've become standard. They've become well known. And I think, it's fine. And I do know somebody who did it in a recession and never came back. They just learned, like, I can handle this. You don't like limoncello. Oh, boy. We might have to time Kona Karma out. Just, I don't know. I don't want to ban over that, but that's really hard to hear. No, whatever you like. It's all good. All right, let's do a resume. Let's do a couple, and then we'll come back. So I'm going to switch views. Max, you ought to be able to see this. Let's see. We'll make sure I have this all right. Resume. Looks like it's been anonymized. Nothing else showing on my screen that I'm worried about. So this resume is of someone who is graduating, I believe. Yeah. Max, I want to do this one first because someone sent this one in. They're graduating in finance in May. So here in, I don't know, 4 to 8 weeks. Apparently they don't have a job yet. What do you think of this resume? And I can scroll down when you're ready. Give me your reactions, particularly because I don't know how much of my resume review you've heard, so we can always disagree violently, which will be fun.
Yeah, let's do that. I've only seen one. So I like how much space this person has used. I think that that's important, just functionally. Let's see. I like this. I think, I mean, something I like the, for example, at the search fund, you want to call out what you did, screening and find company information, conducting research. The one thing that I sort of just, cursory view here see is missing is the sort of did X relative to Y with an outcome of Z. So I see doing X. I see a little bit of relative to Y, but I don't see a ton of sort of results or outcomes. That's important. You want to be respectful to not sort of share information that is confidential, but you also, where you can in a resume, I think generally speaking, want to sort of quantify the impact of whatever it is you were doing. But that's what I'd say. I don't know. I like this resume. Other than that.
So Max, I've taught the STAR format here a lot, right? The
Oh,
same
great.
thing we interview for. Every resume bullet should have situation, task, action, results. Um, and this resume lacks results. So the situation is usually the job. Like I was at I was at this nonprofit, and then I led conversations. So that's the action I took. Um, but what were the results? And I wrote reflection essays for publication. At first, I'm like, what the hell is that about? But for publication, um, but it doesn't say again what the results were. Did you inspire other students? How do you know? Where were they published? What was the readership? I have all these questions. I was looking at someone else's. Yeah, someone here says, awesome, says Quant. I think he's talking about, yeah, he's exactly right. As a finance major, where the hell are the numbers? You're supposed to be a numbers person. This should be filled with how big was this small food mart? Was it a 10,000 a day business? Was it a $2 a day business? Was it $1 million turnover? You can put numbers in here. You also, drove store level sales and profitability. Great. By how much? What did you change it by? Say something. You've got a good job here. One of the rules I give, and Max, you'll get a free resume education in the side light here for your own evaluation of candidates for your jobs. They've done a good job having action verbs everywhere. So interning with is weak, but it's context. Collaborate with editors is weak. You want to try and say things in more action, but screened, conducted, interfaced, analyzed, posted, controlled, drove is the strongest word here. Complied is weak. Prepared, created, communicated. Those are all pretty good, but you got to give the results. Okay, I love that you put an ethics case study here. The people, awesome. Who awesome, by the way, his real name is Awesome, which is double awesome. That is his legal name. I've talked to him on LinkedIn. He's actually awesome. He points out correctly, a finance major with no numbers, like totally, your resume would have gotten a pretty good grade from me until he pointed that out. He sank you. Anyway, but I love the fact you have an ethics case study. And by the way, we have a new emote in the design stage that's going to be me as the resume assassin. So soon we will have the assassin for resume reviews that y'all can use when I go off on something that's missing. Generally, it's a good resume, but no numbers. There's a lot of good things. It does use a lot of the space. It is plain white. You could consider a picture. You could consider a little bit of color to make it stick out. But if you had numbers and results, it would be an A. No results is standard. People miss that all the time. So I'll only downgrade you to a B for that. But as a finance major with no numbers, you drop all the way to a C minus. And it's only the quality of the rest of your resume that is saving you from an F for that. So, and I've been told I'm a harsh grader, so feel how you want, but those are our pieces of advice. Any response to any of that? What are your thoughts in sales, Max?
I think that quantifying the results is super important. I don't know, if you're in sales, you generally want to sort of speak to how you attained your quota. If you've worked on large transactions, what those transactions look like. Again, you want to be respectful and not sort of name names. I think that can be a red flag if you're disclosing non-public information. But yeah, quantifying an impact is super important.
Okay, I'm going to go grab another resume. While I do that, let me start Max on covering while I upload it by answering our next question. So mods will pin this. What are some signs to jump ship from a company before getting laid off? Is a hiring freeze bad news? So we kind of talked about this already, but do you want to say anything about signs to quote unquote jump ship? And give me a minute. I'll get the next resume ready. So answer at slightly more length.
Yeah, I think A hiring freeze is a good indication, although it's definitely not, quote unquote nail in the coffin. I think that, companies pause hiring all the time. I think that the thing you want to look for is business activity impacts and revenue impact. If you're close to that, and maybe you work in accounts receivable or in the finance organization, if you've got to look at the books, or at least cash flow, and you have a feel for that sort of drying up, that's usually an indication that the business is going to have to pull back. If you're in sales or account management, or even customer support, and you're seeing just a sort of mass attrition event happening, that's another indication. Here's what I'll tell you. It's not going to be rocket science. Unfortunately, if a business is having some sort of a material impact to their operations as a result of coronavirus or something else for that matter, you're probably going to get a feel for it. I think that if you have a unique position that gives you a perspective before others, then that could be a bit of an advantage before morale starts to tank and things become toxic. But again, it's customer loss, revenue down, sales activity down. You'll also notice, I think, just generally, I don't know, more malcontent than normal, and a bit of a, I don't know, like a malaise around the company. You can usually sort of feel that vibe, and so those are the things I'd sort of say to look out for.
Okay. Okay, great. So we're gonna do Lead Vitamin's resume. It does have a name on it. I wanted to make sure that it was not his real name. He did say it was anonymized. I'm gonna skip that question because we've answered it before, so I don't have a lot to add to it. Let's roll another resume for fun. You're up first, Max. What do you think?
All right, so I'm waiting for it to pop up.
Yeah, because you're here. Yeah.
I'm just a white square.
Yeah. So is this resume. No, that's not true. It's a white rectangle.
All right, let's see. Computer science, GPA, objective. So you've got an objective. Graduate student with an interest in high performance computing, cloud and DevOps, looking to gain hands-on industry experience in software and firmware development. You've got your thesis outlined, your educational background. Can you just scroll down a little bit to the projects and skills? I'm curious if this person is interested in cloud computing. I wonder if they've also done some of the legwork and gotten certified in some of the educational free resources that we have. A lot of these cloud companies sort of offer. Okay, so you're using AWS, love it. You're using Beanstalk, that's great. You're using Route 53. So you've got some projects that you've got up and running. I think that this is good. I think that you've done work. You've done projects relative that map to your objective, which is to get to work in high performance computing, I think it was. So to work in HPC and cloud generally. The only thing that I don't necessarily see here, and I may be sort of missing it, so apologies if I am, are certifications. What I'll say is, and I said this in my post, all of the hyperscale cloud providers, so that's Microsoft Azure, Google's cloud platform, as well as AWS, offer a really rich set of self-paced training libraries and certifications that you can get. Some of them are I think cost money, think less than $100 or so, and then others are free. And so what I'd say is, if you are sort of really interested in getting a job in cloud computing and you're thinking about applying for jobs at one of those companies, getting those certifications is a fantastic way to demonstrate your level of interest, but more importantly, B, if and when you get the job, you will come in ready to hit the ground running and be really well acclimated. Now, this person may not need that because they're already running their website on with some basic AWS tools. But for example, if this person, you said cloud, and many companies offer cloud, if you wanted to go work at, like I said, Microsoft or Google, you'd want to probably go and spend a few cycles getting some level of certification or doing some self-paced training in their training libraries. That's my take.
Okay. Yeah, so Pink Dragons, you can just go ahead and ban that idiot. No need to time out. Just blow them up. And thank you. Okay. Yeah, people who come in and advertise to us in our own stream, they are unwelcome. So I think that was a great rundown. I think this is a quite good resume. Chat, if you see flaws in this resume, you should call them out, not only for lead vitamin's sake, but I don't have much to add. Okay, so clean intro gives all the social links, which is good. As a PoliSci student, has GitHub right up on top, so calling out that they do work. Has a lot of specific detail, has an objective. The formatting's a little weird. I usually see the right column being thinner is a little weird. I might consider swapping the columns. I would, I guess, consider swapping the columns and having the right be the left and vice versa, is my opinion. But this is a super solid resume. Let's see. Do we have results on anything? Okay. The fail here is the same one as the last resume. No specific results from any of these. And I realize you're in school, but what was the impact? What someone else said is measurable for impact. I do like the fact you included being a crew leader. And were you really there 13 years? That's pretty incredible. But being able to put in there that you work this hard job goes to the point of grit, determination. And you probably listened to one of my streams where I said I like that because here's someone I know who knows how to work. Like if you really were a crew leader for mowing contractors for 13 flipping years, and now you're a grad student in PoliSci, like good on you. By the way, if you haven't applied to Amazon, I'm just saying there are 10,000 open jobs. I think you'd be an exceptional potential fit.
We offer FPGA instances. Come work on them.
Yeah. Yeah, you have an objective. The only thing I would do to this resume is add results and flip things left and right. Those are the two things I would add. So let's see what else chat had to say. Kind of a spray and pray rather than targeting a certain job. Yeah, you might want to customize for jobs. Obviously, resumes people post here are usually their base resume before customization. Yeah, there is some point you list a lot of skills. You could call out top skills or expert in, familiar with. I though would, if you had results, this would be an A resume with the column switch and adding results. It's a B resume, but B is pretty good, by the way. Most people's resumes clock in between D and F.